One thing the Biden administration wants you to know is that it takes enforcing the law very seriously. It is a defender of the rule of law, we are told. And it's especially devoted to the law when it comes to gun crime, supposedly. This is something that Biden takes very seriously. In fact, Biden's DOJ proudly promotes its handling of gun cases on its website as part of a much larger initiative, which is supposedly intended to combat gun violence. They want you to believe that lying on federal gun forms is a very serious crime. That's why earlier this year, the ATF put out a statement entitled, "Federal prosecutors aggressively pursuing those who lie in connection with firearm transactions." It's also why a few weeks ago, Democrats in Congress held hearings featuring anti-gun activists like Rob Wilcox. And that hearing was derailed, though, when a congressman asked Wilcox a simple and obvious question. Why isn't Hunter Biden going to prison, given that he lied on a federal form about his drug use and his Navy discharge to obtain a firearm? Democrats in the hearing room didn't like that question very much. Watch.
If a person lies on Form 4473 and is a user of unlawful drugs, you can get between 5 to 10 years for that. Is that correct? Is that my understanding?
No, I believe Congress changed the sentence last Congress.
What is that sentence now?
Up to 15.
Up to 15 years. Why hasn't Hunter Biden been prosecuted for the crime that he committed?
I'm not aware of the facts of that case and can't comment on it.
Okay, who do we talk to see why this case is not being prosecuted? I mean, he said very clearly in his book that he used drugs, he had at least a gun.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
State your point of order.
Totally irrelevant and not germane to this proceeding.
Sir, he's got his 5 minutes. Go ahead, continue.
Okay, so I understand why you do not want Mr. Wilcox to answer that question. It's very clear why you don't want, because there's a dual system of justice in America. That's what's going on right now, and everybody's talking about it across America. There's two standards of justice that are going on.
Two standards of justice, he says, and, well, he was proven right, of course. By now, you've probably heard how the Biden DOJ managed to square this circle. Yesterday, after a 5-year criminal investigation, the DOJ announced that unlike Ray and Juan and Eddie, Hunter will not go to prison for a year for lying on a federal gun form. In fact, he won't even spend a day in prison. Instead, Hunter Biden will go into a diversion program. And that's remarkable, not just because it's an obviously unfair result, but also because diversion programs like that, according to the DOJ's own guidelines, are unavailable to any defendant who has ever brandished a firearm while committing a felony. And as National Review has reported, publicly available videos from Hunter Biden's laptop, quote, show him brandishing the weapon while high on crack cocaine, which is also a felony. Needless to say, Hunter Biden was never charged with brandishing his firearm or smoking crack. He also wasn't charged with reckless endangerment after his handgun wound up in a trash bin across the street from a high school, even though that seems like a pretty big public safety risk. Senator Mike Lee noted that prosecutors could have easily brought these cases, and probably many others, quote, evidence supported other charges that would have rendered him presumptively ineligible for diversion. But the DOJ buried all of that. The DOJ also let Hunter Biden off the hook on tax evasion. He's getting no jail time for failing to pay taxes for 2 years. Several former assistant U.S. attorneys, including Andrew Weissman and Renato Mariotti, think that all this checks out. Quote, these charges are rarely brought, Mariotti wrote on Twitter yesterday. He added, quote, if anything, it looks like Hunter Biden received harsh treatment. Well, it took all of 5 minutes for journalist Mike Cernovich to debunk that by citing Renato Mariotti's own work, including the time Mariotti pursued a 5-year prison sentence for defendants who failed to pay taxes on less than $2 million in income. And that was not an unusual case. The typical sentence for tax fraud offenders, according to the DOJ's own statistics, is over 16 months in prison. And these are often people who, unlike Hunter Biden, didn't abuse the public's trust by selling a politician's influence overseas. Now, we're not going to spend any more time on the hypocrisy that's on display in Hunter Biden's case. We're not going to go into how, on his first day in office, Joe Biden put a law partner of Hunter Biden's defense attorney in charge of the criminal division of the DOJ. We could spend all day talking about stuff like that. The special treatment couldn't be more obvious, so there's no point belaboring it. We all see it. What's really interesting, though, is that if you dig a little deeper, this story is much bigger than Hunter Biden. And indeed, it's much bigger than politics. And if you doubt that, watch this report from ABC's top Washington correspondent. Pay close attention to how the reporter contradicts himself in real time, apparently without realizing it. Watch.
These issues of conflict of interest and playing off his name and the Biden family name will be investigated by Congress, by Republicans in Congress, and the issue is not going away.
But doesn't this show, Carl, that Biden is not in the pocket of the DOJ? I mean...
Yeah, and again, it depends on, so how do you look at it? Do you look at it and you say, look, they prosecuted anyway, his son now has a criminal record. Yes, that shows, that it would seem to show there was no interference. He didn't pull the plug on the investigation. He didn't order his attorney general to pull the plug on the investigation. But what Republicans will say is that this didn't look at the bigger, more serious allegations. There are significant concerns about Hunter Biden's business dealings. You know, he has the contract that he had with the Ukrainian energy company, also his business dealings in China. I mean, one of the details that we reported earlier they were looking into that's just so strange, Hunter Biden was given a 2.8 carat diamond from a Chinese business associate. I mean, what's it all about? We don't know.
Now, if you can filter out the dumb talking points from the View lady about how all this totally vindicates the DOJ, then that's actually a fascinating clip. The senior Washington correspondent at ABC News begins by explaining that there's no evidence whatsoever that the Biden family is corrupt, but he ends the segment by admitting there's something fishy about that fat diamond that somehow found its way from China into Hunter Biden's possession. Picture the perfect summer night, the warm summer breeze on your face as you lounge in your favorite chair outside, the grill sizzling with juicy burgers. The aroma of the food is irresistible. Your mouth waters as you wait for it to be cooked to perfection. Now imagine what this perfect summer night would look like if you went to turn on the grill and your propane tank was empty. That's where my friends at Cinch come in, and they can save the day for you. Cinch is a propane grill tank home delivery service. They deliver propane tanks right to your door. Cinch delivers on your schedule, does not require any long-term commitment or subscription. Plus, delivery is completely contactless. You don't have to wait around at home. You can track the order on the Cinch app from anywhere. Whether you're grilling for the Sweet Baby Gang, camping with your family, or lighting up your fire pit on a cold summer night, whatever it is, Cinch's propane delivery service ensures you have the fuel you need to make the most of every moment and every summer night. Go online to cinch.com or download their app to order. New customers can get their first tank exchange for just $10 with promo code Walsh. That's CYNCH.com, promo code Walsh. This is a limited time offer, and you must live within a Cinch service area to redeem it. Visit cinch.com/offer for details. Congress once again allowed itself to be pushed into appeasing the administration and raising the debt ceiling for the 79th time, paving the way for continued reckless spending and further devaluation of the dollar. As our national debt continues to skyrocket, how are you protecting your savings? Times like these are a great reminder to diversify a portion of your savings into gold, and you can do that with the help of Birch Gold. They're who I buy my gold from, so do thousands of other concerned savers. Birch Gold will help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold. You don't pay a penny out of pocket. It's very easy to do. When currencies fail, gold is a safe haven. How much more time does a dollar have? Ask yourself that. Well, you can protect your savings with gold. Birch Gold has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and thousands of happy customers. Text Walsh to 989898 and get your free info kit on gold today. Again, text Walsh to 989898. Later, he goes on to concede that it's weird that Biden was making tens of thousands of dollars a month for a no-show job at a Ukrainian energy company and selling his paintings for ludicrous sums of money to unknown foreign buyers, etc. Now, put aside whatever you think of the politics of all this. Maybe you love Hunter Biden for some reason. I don't know. Ask yourself this, though. What's the effect on millions of Americans watching a news report as incoherent and poorly conceived as that one? It's not just fraudulent reporting. It's obviously fraudulent reporting. Even if you're a diehard Democrat, that has to resonate with you for the wrong reasons. It's not just that the DOJ is cutting the president's son a break. What we're seeing, what's now undeniable, is that the media apparently is so inept that they can't even lie about it properly. Even ABC's highest-ranking correspondent in Washington just can't pull it off to save his life. This gets to a much broader issue, which is a lot bigger than Hunter Biden. And that issue is the level of trust Americans have in the core institutions of this country. Every poll shows that the trust is plummeting, and it's not hard to see why. Everywhere you look, you're being subjected to propaganda that would make North Korean state media blush. They're treating you like you're a complete idiot. It's relentless. Just hours after the DOJ announced that Hunter Biden won't face any punishment for violating federal law, numerous federal laws, the Pentagon revealed that yet another accounting error means that we get to spend $6 billion more in Ukraine because of an accounting error. Imagine that. And on top of that, also on the very same day that the DOJ announced Hunter Biden wouldn't go to prison, we learned that the plan is to put Donald Trump on trial prior to the 2024 election. How is CNN covering that? Well, they ran this headline, quote, "Another historic week in the investigation and prosecution of Donald Trump." Contrast that with another CNN headline from this week on the same kind of prosecution happening in Russia. Quote, "Russian opposition leader faces decades behind bar as new trial starts." Translation, it's good when we throw our opposition leaders in jail. It's bad when Russia does it. Well, if it's hard to believe that anyone's falling for this anymore, that's because no one is falling for it anymore, or at least very few people. Every major institution in this country now flaunts the norms they pretended for so long to care about. And that matters because the quote-unquote democratic system that the left pretends to deeply cherish doesn't work if the people lose all trust and faith in the system itself. If nobody believes any of this or believes in any of this, it all falls apart. People notice when the authorities imprison good Samaritans like Daniel Penny, even as arsonists and rapists go free. They notice when the DOJ sends a SWAT team to raid the home of a father who protected his child from an abortion clinic volunteer while totally failing to investigate attacks on Christian pregnancy centers. Breakdowns in trust often begin in the political world in response to obvious hypocrisy like this, but the harm transcends the political world very quickly. Pretty soon you have no norms left of any kind whatsoever. For years, we've been witnessing in slow motion the destruction of any integrity in the fields of medicine and public health. And this week, very publicly, it came to a head. Now we're told that vaccine scientists shouldn't debase themselves by debating skeptics on Joe Rogan's podcasts. You know, you have guys like Tom Nichols and others, people in the establishment media. They've been arguing for days that the credibility of the medical field would be diminished if experts engaged in these kinds of spectacles started lowering themselves to the point of debating non-experts on podcasts. But the medical field's credibility is already diminished to the point of non-existence. Like nobody trusts it anymore. That's what happens when you forcibly inject a drug into millions of people's bodies while lying about its efficacy. And when you castrate and sterilize children while claiming that it's a life-saving procedure. It's what happens when the entire medical field solemnly declares out of nowhere that men can get pregnant. The guy who's refusing to debate RFK Jr. on Joe Rogan's podcast is named Peter Hotez. He's supposedly a preeminent vaccine expert, the media tells us. But on every major issue concerning vaccines and COVID over the past 2 years, Hotez hasn't just been wrong, he's been crazy. In April of 2021, for example, he wrote in Nature magazine that anti-vaccine groups in the United States are linked to Russia and need to be shut down. Quote, "The United Nations and the highest levels of government must take direct, even confrontational approaches with Russia and move to dismantle anti-vaccine groups in the United States." And back in June of 2020, Hotez appeared on MSNBC to explain why it's okay to protest for BLM in the middle of a pandemic. He said, quote, "It's not so simple to just say that protests will bring back COVID." He said, he added that, quote, "Structural racism causes 3 times higher COVID-19 death rates in the African-American population." Hotez wasn't the only scientist to say that at the time. Dozens of public health experts agreed. Jennifer Nuzzo, a Johns Hopkins epidemiologist, wrote that, quote, "In this moment, the public health risks of not protesting to demand an end to systemic racism greatly exceed the harms of the virus." Abrar Karan, a physician at Brigham and Women's Hospital, wrote, quote, "While I have voiced concerns that protests risk creating more outbreaks, the status quo wasn't going to stop COVID-19 either." Now, Americans remember all of this. They remember when the Biden administration nationalized all of America's rental properties in the name of public health. They remember the demands that we wear cloth masks in airplanes and that our children wear masks for 8 hours in school every day, even after everyone admitted that cloth masks don't do anything. And it's precisely because Americans remember all of this that they won't want Peter Hotez going anywhere near an actual debate. He can go on MSNBC where it's safe. On MSNBC, he can talk about how protesting lockdowns is bad while protesting the police is good. No one's going to challenge him there. What's important to recognize is that Peter Hotez is a symptom of much larger institutional rot, which is now being reinforced by virtually every major medical school in this country. Last year, Wake Forest defended a medical student who admitted to stabbing a patient for mocking her pronoun pin. They didn't expel her. In fact, she's going to graduate soon. And Wake Forest is not the exception. Here's what medical school looks and sounds like these days. Listen to this.
We enter the profession of medicine with appreciation for the opportunity to build on the scientific and humanistic achievements of the past. We also recognize the acts and systems of oppression affected in the name of medicine. We take this oath of service to begin building a future grounded in truth, restoration, and equity to fulfill medicine's capacity to liberate. I promise to take care of my future patients by engaging in dialogue, listening to their lived experience, and tailoring my recommendations to their unique circumstances. I acknowledge the past and present failures of medicine to abide by its obligation to do no harm and affirm the need to address systemic issues in the institutions I uphold. I promise to critically examine the systems and experiences that impact every person's health and ability to receive care.
It's medical school for you. Makes you feel very good if you're going into surgery, this week or something. Doctors are taking these Maoist oaths because they now believe ideology is more important than patient care. Every day they abandon another scientific principle on the altar of wokeism, no matter what effect it has on the patients. Here's the latest example. Now the American Medical Association is telling doctors that body mass index, or BMI, is a racist concept. It's racist to tell people about BMI or tell them to keep their BMI down. That's going to cause a lot of deaths from diseases like hypertension and diabetes, but they don't care. Again, the public isn't stupid. People have noticed all this. It's why they don't trust the medical field anymore. It's why they don't trust the justice system. It's why they don't trust academia, the media, the government. Trust in our fundamental institutions has never been lower. And it's all the fault not of conspiracy theorists, but of the actual actions of these institutions themselves. If civilization starts coming apart at the seams, it's not going to be because of alleged conspiracy theorists like Alex Jones or whoever. It'll be because of the people and institutions that made the conspiracy theorists right about nearly everything. Hey, YouTube, thanks for listening to the show. If you'd like access to my full show with no ads, you should go to dailywire.com and use promo code Walsh to get 2 months free on all annual plans. See you there.